everyone. Welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and my guest today is an incredible woman. I know I say that about every guest, but she really is. She's a practitioner of cranial sacral therapy. She's a Marconics energy practitioner, level 4, which is the highest level. She does a lot of inspirational writing. She's a published author, a blogger, and she also does freelance marketing and design, and she's so talented. Welcome, Kaye Michelle.
Oh, thank you, Wendy. So I'm so glad to be here. So happy to be here with you.
Thanks so much for being here. We have so much to cover, so we're going to dive right in. I wanted to go, first of all, I think such an interesting fact about you that not a lot of people know is that you actually went to West Point, which is such an incredible accomplishment, first of all. But I feel a kind of warrior spirit in you, so maybe we could start there if you're comfortable with that, and then we can kind of just move forward.
Okay, that sounds great. I feel that the spiritual warrior aspect of myself has really been the theme of my whole life, whether it shows up in a work environment, a relationship, or it's always it's about standing in my power.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times in my life where I felt like so many times I wasn't, but it was all perfect. It's all about learning this skill, learning how not to do it, learning the polarity. We're here on earth with positive, negative, light, dark. And so learning how to feel disempowered is a way, that's your path to feel empowered, so that you can really sense that feeling of power. And so it's like this entire life, and it's been a number of years now, has been about that. And West Point it's one of my favorite stories, even though in a sense I didn't complete it, but
Mm-hmm.
I went there and found a part of myself which I wanted to connect with. And I think I really didn't even need that piece until I've come into the Marconics practice.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. Fighting for the light it's really been my job my whole life. But the warrior aspect came and went, and sometimes it came in relationships and that was anyway. So you learn how to kind of wield your power too. So there are all those lessons with being a spiritual warrior: when to step up and fight, and when to be silent. And I've also learned that being silent is sometimes more powerful than...
I was just going to say that. I think you read my mind. I was going to say sometimes there's more power in the silence than in the noise.
Right. Yeah.
So.
And you think about Tai Chi and a lot of the martial arts where the stillness is that power. So it's been a really, really, really interesting journey.
I know, your life is so fascinating. After you got out of school, did you start traveling immediately after you got out of school? I know you've been on a path of enlightenment and awakening for such a long time. And you've had so many incredible life experiences unfold as a result of that journey.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can speak to us a little bit about how that unfolded for you.
It was pretty organic. After college, I started working as a branch manager of a bank, and very, very 3D world, very left brain. And then I met Dave, the father of my kids, and we got married, and I had children, and so everything was pretty linear at that point, and pretty pretty typical. It was just a pretty typical experience. You know, we had the minivan and the sports car in the garage, and he was a lawyer, and I did freelance work at home. I did some interior design while I raised my boys and went to soccer games, and but all along underneath the surface, and I believe this started probably from my West Point experience, was this little bit of, it just sort of started with like a little bit of turbulence, and then it started getting bigger and bigger, and that was the awakening. It starts off, sometimes you have a big burst. I had a interesting experience when I was at West Point, and then it just went quiet for a while, and I went through sort of finding my life, getting anchored in being a grown-up and an adult, and then it started again, these little waves. I had, my 2 deliveries were a little physically challenging and traumatic. They were sort of that's not a great story, but it's a story that, again, that was a catalyst. They're all meant to be catalysts to wake me up. Mm. And so then I started meditating. That was back in 92. And the more I meditated, the faster the pace got. And then I got into yoga and changed my life changed. I got a divorce, and then went from the lawyer to a turban wearing yogi. And,
that's a pretty radical shift.
It was.
Like one extreme to another.
Right. But at that point, everything in my life became about growing spiritually. I was into yoga, meditation. I started bodywork training. I took Reiki training. So this was all right around 1999. And that's when I started traveling. The spiritual seeking, the training, the honing my spiritual side, really, it felt like
traveled all over the world.
I did. Luckily, it was
incredible.
I don't know how I managed it, but I did, and it was really valuable and a real gift to be able to do that, because you learn so much by visiting and experiencing other cultures, and just it stretches out your comfort zones. You know, everything is about expanding and growing. You know, once you've been tapped to grow spiritually, it's
you can't turn it off.
No.
You can't unlearn what you know.
Right.
You can't unknow what you now know.
Right. And this is where the spiritual warrior aspect comes in, because it was just so many times I needed to call on a deeper well of courage. You know, I flew to India by myself.
What?
And I met somebody there. I met a woman there and kind of palled around with her for a couple of days. But, you know, it's sometimes it's just absolutely terrifying. So it's just grounding and allowing that higher aspect of yourself to come through and take care of you and boost you and expand you, and you learn new skills and you have greater depth, and you know. But
I think if you can walk through the world or your life with that kind of rightness and trust and faith, mm-hmm. that the universe has you, that your higher self is guiding you in the right direction.
Right.
And you can open your heart to receive that guidance, you're going to grow exponentially and move through things so much faster than if you fight every step of the way. You're still going to get to the same destination, but it's going to be a very different kind of journey.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've completely experienced that. Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm the queen of resistance. Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. So I pretty much almost daily really have to sit down and I can notice where I'm clenching and holding and resisting. And again, I think that's that spiritual warrior. I'm like, no, it should be my way. It should be my way. Well, my personality's way, and it frequently doesn't agree with my, my higher self way. So it's a daily practice to surrender and remember, okay, surrender. This part, I really want to come forward. This part, that the spiritual aspect, the higher selves, no, way more than this little small mind.
Way more than the human mind.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That was one of my big lessons last year and spilling over into this year is complete surrender.
Oh,
and complete surrender requires a tremendous amount of faith in the outcome, because everything around you in your physical reality might look like a complete mess.
Yes.
But there's a miracle in that mess, and details, and the chess pieces are being moved on the board to align for the checkmate, but you don't see it. You're just in the mess, so to have faith in that experience when you're in a very 3D reality that's presenting in a chaotic way or an uncomfortable way, to be able to trust that this is going to serve a higher purpose for us has been a huge lesson for me.
Oh, me too. And it's just always, every single situation it's all one step to the next step to the next step to take you to.
So you opened a yoga studio. How long did you own that for?
About 10 years. Yeah. And that was fun, and it was challenging, and it was a privilege. It felt like a privilege and an honor to touch and support the community in that way, and to offer something at the time. This was back in 2004 when I would say to people, I'm opening a yoga studio, and they would giggle and say, oh, yogurt? Thinking, yeah, you just wait. This is big.
You were cutting edge. You're ahead of your time.
Yes, yeah, but it's hard. It's hard to be ahead of your time sometimes, because you're judged, and you sometimes second guess yourself. So that's when that.
Don't we always second guess ourselves?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm only now standing in my truth, in my power, and knowing that what I am aligning with is what I am supposed to be doing, instead of listening to everyone else. If I listened to everyone else, I would never have the courage to do this show, or send writings out to be published, or write a book, or post what I post on my Facebook page, because I would always be trying to fit into a paradigm that I don't belong in.
And I'm so happy that you choose that path, because I gain a lot of inspiration from your Facebook posts and your writing.
Thank you.
And just talking to you and being your friend. It's
hard to speak our truth, right?
It is.
We're fully empowered ourselves and in alignment with our.
Right.
You want to mute that?
Yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. Until we do that, then we really are more influenced by the opinions of others. So coming into our power is first and foremost, right? Our alignment. And
absolutely.
Having the courage to be who we came here to be, not who others want us to be.
Right, right.
That's what this journey is about, right?
It is, and that's the challenge, but it's the gift too. When you just 5 months ago, I had to step away from a corporate job, and even though in my heart of hearts, and I wanted to, it still scared me, because it's that regular income. It's
you become part of that. That becomes part of your identity.
Right.
Like, who are you without that title or that income or whatever?
Yeah. To be honest, I was sort of it triggered my body, my physical self was triggered. My nervous system, that stress response. And so I had to use all of my tools to just kind of settle myself down and get centered and say, no, this is such a good thing. This is a victory. This is, wow, we finally have the freedom to do what we came here to do once again, because I had the studio, let that go. And then I went off into corporate world, and I so desperately wanted to come back because it's my path. It's my path to come back out and write and help and inspire people to go through this very, at times, difficult path. So.
Spiritual awakening is no joke. So freaking hard. It's so freaking hard for everybody who's on this path consciously. If you're going through a lot of shit right now, I honor you. It takes courage for us to show up, go through our shit, look at ourselves, own our truth, not just the good truth. The hardest part is owning those ugly aspects that we don't want anyone to know about, right?
Yeah.
People to know that we're jealous or envious or insecure or whatever it is. I've been all those things, and I had to own that shit. And it was hard. Yeah. Because I was very much a perfectionist. I suffered from perfectionism, which is a real, that's a ball buster, man. Being a perfectionist is the worst because you're never enough, you know? No. So digging yourself out of a hole. But I do want to find out more about you. So you, when did you write your book? The title of your book is Return of the Heroine. Did I get that right? Yes, yes. I read it. It's awesome. Thank you. Everyone should buy that book. She's a phenomenal writer. And I'll put the link to her website and where you can purchase her book. But it was an incredible story. What inspired that story, and how long ago did you publish it? I published it in 2012, and it was my West Point experience that was a catalyst for that story. And obviously, I mean, that was 20 years before I wrote it that I had that experience. But was sitting in there, and it was such an extraordinary experience at the time. I mean, that was my awakening moment. That was my initial catalyzing moment. And it was during a super stressful time. I was at West Point. I had left a very kind of almost terrifying meeting with my squad leader, who was being very threatening and aggressive. And I would say a tad, seemed like a little bit of a sociopath. And so I'm just sort of in a panic, because going to West Point was a dream of mine for a couple of years when I was in high school, and I got in, and I had everybody counting on me. My family, my mom and dad are so proud of me. So proud, right. Right. But I have this warrior spirit, and I'm feeling like being a warrior is my path. But oh my God, something's not right here. And I'm walking down. I was in this, West Point looks very much like a castle. So I was walking down this tower. At the end of a building, there's a staircase, and it's in a tower. And I'm walking down the staircase, and all of a sudden, I feel like this wave. And it was literally like another layer of time just kind of got put right in front of me. Like a flash. Yeah. The veil just thinned, right, in two places at once almost, right? It did, yep. And it's called a palimpsest. And so... what's it called? A palimpsest. I've never heard that one. Yeah, it's kind of when you can, you're being in two places at the same time, two different time zones. Mm-hmm. And I put my hand on the handrail and where I physically was, and I'm walking down the stairs, but I just slowed down, and I could feel like I was in, like I had soft sole leather shoes, and I was basically walking down this stairwell to my death. And I could feel there were guards with me. Oh my gosh. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm walking to my death. And so I felt like that was a very strong message. You know, it's time to go. And I'm glad you honored that. Well, it was so strong. It really terrified me. And then I'm in fight or flight. Then I'm wanting to completely get out of there. So I ran over to
a senior that I knew. He grew up in my state, and just said, I've got to go. And he said, okay. So we went over, he walked me over to the superintendent's office, and I went through 2 weeks of meetings and interviews, because there were only 100 women. So if
Right.
I leave, they really didn't want me to leave, because they felt like I was doing a very good job while I was there, and I was an asset. I had made the varsity cross country team, and I loved all that part. It was this hazing and this squad leader that really sent me.
Well, and the squad leader has a lot of power over you.
Yes.
And so it's not like there's anyone to buffer
right.
relationship between you and the squad leader.
Right.
Interaction was inevitable, and it would be constant.
Yes, and I felt like it was building. It was only getting worse, and I really felt in physical danger. It was that part of your nervous system that just knows, especially as women, we know when we're in a place that's not
safe. And you're
safe.
very intuitive, so I'm glad that you honored that. And how did you deal with the pushback, like from your family? Was your family supportive? Did you feel like you were letting them down? Like, how were they just like, what are you doing? Are you kidding? You're throwing away this incredible opportunity?
Everything. It was all of that. And so that's where the warrior spirit had to come in, and that I just had to stand in my truth. But every particle of my being knew that it was my path to leave. It was my path to go, and now it was my path to leave. And so it's the beginning of really trusting that aspect of myself. Even when I had to start going against mainstream, my family.
That's huge. Huge.
It was hard.
To have that courage at that age is remarkable, really.
Yeah, and the culture at West Point is they would threaten you. They would say, if you quit, you'll never succeed at anything. There was
nothing. You're nothing. If
nothing. You'll never feel good about yourself. So there was just a lot of opposition, and so it was really my first time to really stand against
your power.
Mainstream.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and do what you felt aligned with. So this is so cool because you got an honorable mention in the Writer's Digest writing competition. As a writer, you also were a finalist in the Hay House Visions fiction writing competition. And I just love that you're really, really intertwining heroism with empowerment of the modern woman. That's something that the story really conveys in a beautiful way. So it's a beautifully written book.
Oh, thank you, Wendy. Thank you.
Yeah, I loved this story. It was so good to the end.
Thank you. I have to tell you, I had such joy writing it. It was such a powerful experience connecting with Joan of Arc in that way. It's during this time it takes, we need the heroine to come forward. So I'm hoping with my words, others will be inspired to step forward. There are many, many places in our world still that need courage, and we need that feminine courage. And it doesn't need to look like male courage. Feminine courage is that stillness. It's that power of that authentic, really deep power without fighting, without hitting, without disturbing. It's just a very different.
They say like stillness speaks.
Exactly. Right. That's right. Yeah.
We have such a deep well of power at our disposal, and so many women bury it.
Yeah.
They hide.
Yes.
I hope this does inspire people to be who they are born to be.
Right.
But it does require a certain degree of courage, that's for sure.
Yeah, and like you said before, that faith and trusting your impulses, trusting that inner voice that it's often very quiet. So,
How did you find Marconic's energy? How were you led to that modality?
Again, it was one of those synchronistic moments. My honey is a chiropractor, and so we were actually visiting another chiropractor. He was treating this other chiropractor, and he was talking about all kinds of things that he's into these days, that he's finding inspiration from, and he happened to mention Marconics. And he was talking about Lisa and Allison, and it just stuck. It was just like, there's like these little,
Spark.
a bunch of light around it. And so I wrote it down, and I came home and looked it up, and I showed the website to Jay, and he said, I think you need to take this training. And I said, yes, I think I do too. So that's how I found it. And it was like coming home. I had done some writing about the world, Atlantis, art history through all time, just some personal writings. And when Allison got up in front of the classroom and started saying things that I had written and I hadn't heard anywhere else, it was such an amazing coincidence.
It all makes sense all of a sudden, right?
Yeah.
For some of us. I mean, for us, it resonated in a powerful way.
Right. Yes.
Sure. I didn't even know what it was. I was like signed up. Seriously. Oh, I read the book. There's the book.
Yep. Yeah.
I think it's Marconic's The Clarion Call was the first book about how Marconics came to be. And then Angels of Atlantis was the second book. But there was something about that, reading that. I actually, and I've told this story before, I started to read that book on my Kindle, actually on my iPad. And I could feel this like energy coming off, like my iPad. I'm like, what the hell? It was really powerful. I'm like, I need to sign up for this class. It was really powerful. So what have been some of the lessons you've learned about yourself along this journey, Kaye? I know there's so many, but what have been the pivotal, lessons or moments that you've used as a catalyst to moving forward?
Let's see. Oh, well, for some reason, what popped into my head when you said, what did I learn? Honestly, this will probably surprise you, but the thing that I've learned the most is that I am loved way more than I thought I was, in all dimensions. So that was a surprise to me. I know it sounds funny, but it really was. And I've learned to keeping my mouth shut is way more powerful than thinking I'm speaking up. But for me, at this point in my life, it's really about going silent. And then if I go silent, all of a sudden, the circumstances sort of change and it comes back around in my favor. So I just have to allow things to work out. I need to get out of the way and let that greater part of me lead. So I'm here as a personality, trying to get to a certain place spiritually, and I need to know, okay, where I use the personality and where I need to pull it back. So that
getting out of the way is so hard because our human aspect wants to control every step of the process,
right,
the outcome. That's human nature.
Right.
We always ask, what do we need to do?
Right.
Who do we need to be? Right?
Right.
And so the what do we need to do part gets in the way because there are, I feel, things beyond our knowledge, our scope of knowledge, and things that are influencing our path that are beyond what most people are aware of.
Right.
So if we allow our, I want to say human aspect to really run the show, we're actually limiting our potential.
Right.
And we're slowing our progress. We're creating drag. We think
Right.
we're hitting the mark and we're controlling everything and it's going perfectly and it's going as planned. But there are far greater things out there for us if we allow the process to unfold and do our inner work.
Right.
Focus on being instead of pushing, driving. Everything in the new year. What's it about? What are your goals? What's your vision? How are you going to earn more this year? What more are you going to do this year?
Yeah.
It's not about who are you? Who do you want to be? How do you align with that? And how do you send that power out into the world and attract your highest and best outcome instead of chase it?
Yeah. And that's tricky. That's an everyday remembering for me. Yeah.
2018 kind of closed with a bang. We had winter solstice from December 21st to January 4th. I felt a lot of energy was coming in, hitting our planet, affecting humanity, and also churning up a shit ton of stuff internally for people to be released. I know I had things that I thought I had long resolved and let go of come up that I had to do more work around. Was that the same for you?
It was. Actually, that time I felt there was something about that period of time. I felt like I was revisiting the past, and I could feel the progress that I had made. So that was very heartening. And then it was when we started getting into this blood wolf moon that.
Right, and then this whole thing comes out, the blood wolf moon, which is really kind of the final shakeout of releasing things that no longer serve us. There were a lot of people who were going through a lot of, whether it was going through it privately or publicly, a lot of people were going through a lot of difficult emotions and life circumstances, forcing them to release that grip, that icy grip on things that no longer serve them, right?
Yes. And so that's when you find out, oh, wow, thought I healed that. I guess not.
I hate it when that happens. Here it is again.
Here we are again.
Like, what? I've done so much work on this,
I know.
Oh my gosh.
And being empathic, it's that was a big part of my journey too, is learning where giving back other people their issues,
their stuff. Yeah.
And knowing, oh, that's not me. That's, that's them. And
or the collective.
Relax around that.
Sometimes as empaths, we absorb the angst of the collective. I don't know, that blood wolf moon, that week was pretty rough, and I'm pretty good about discerning what's mine and what's not, and doing my energetic protection and being very clear about cutting and releasing things. But I was very much impacted by the energy of what was happening on our planet.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I was not alone in that, I want to read this because you sent this to me, and I think it's so beautiful. And it was about what you've learned.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to read this because I think it's so beautiful, and it's got so much wisdom in it. You said, life is a canvas-like map which contains our spiritual curriculum and the progressive framework in which we will work and learn in this lifetime. You may paint on it or go anywhere you like, because all of it will be relevant to your curriculum and your unique spiritual agenda. My role, which is Kaye's role, is to help you heal all of those aspects within yourself with grace and a little more joy, and complete the curriculum your soul or higher self created, so you may integrate all those aspects, those higher aspects of you waiting in the wings, and ascend to the next level within your present life, spiritually and across time. I think that is so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so if you'd like to work with Kaye, I'm going to put her website down below so you can reach her and enjoy some of that magic. And
Thank you.
she guides you on your journey. I think she's incredibly intuitive, that's for sure. But also she has been working on herself and her ascension path for a long time. And she has so much wisdom to offer, you know.
Thank you, Wendy. Right back at you.
Thank you. Mine was a much more accelerated white knuckle ride, but we both ended up getting where we needed to be, right?
Right.
So,
well, I think that because it's taken me, I think I had a lot of things to clear, obviously because they started me on that path really early. So, maybe I'm the remedial spiritual student, but I certainly learned a lot.
yeah.
So,
I think a key element is really actually doing the clearing, and by clearing, we mean going deep. People go, I do all kinds of personal work. You know, kind of picking at that scab, that's not personal work. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's DNA. It's diving deep in that DNA, going into the deepest emotional angst and holding that with a loving heart and soft eyes, looking at yourself. And that's courage right there. That's courage.
Yeah. You have to look at those darkest aspects and actually love yourself anyway.
Yes, that's the trick. That's the gift, though, as well. That's the gift. Yeah.
And I found, too, like, if you go there, when I go there into the dark, and if I can really sit and be present after the initial pain of it, I'm like, hey, wait, this isn't so bad.
Right.
It's almost the fear of it is worse than actually being sitting in it, you know, and allowing it to process and then releasing it. And then you elevate after you throw that 50-pound weight off. You know?
Absolutely.
So.
Well, and when I have moments and I experience grief and I really hold it, all of a sudden there's this feeling of beauty. And I look at my path and I think, wow, it's so beautiful that I feel that deeply. So that's really transforming that emotion and flipping it over to the polarity side, because everything has a polarity. So if you're having a negative experience, you just sit with it. The law of physics, the way the universe works, you have to experience the other side as well. So because it's all there in that moment. It's all there in that experience. It's whole. The experience is whole. If you're here right in the dark side, we'll just sit with it long enough and then it will turn to light. So
yeah, it's sitting with it long enough.
Right.
Some people have a 3-second rule and they're out.
Yeah. I don't blame them. It's daunting.
I'm going to happy hour, they're out.
It's sure not pretty at times. That is for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I think also we have to remember that everyone in our lives that shows up, it's our soul family, our children, our spouse, our significant others, our coworkers, our boss. They're so perfectly placed to mirror back to us what we need to resolve.
I know.
They're like so perfect.
Oh my gosh. Only always.
Yeah. And they play their role so well.
They do. Yep.
It's like Oscar winning performance.
It is.
So that we have to actually learn our lessons and grow, even if we don't want to. Right?
Yes.
So true. Well, I'd love to find out if you could, I'm going to ask if you could share a little bit of wisdom with our audience. We've all gone through such struggles in our lives. So maybe you can offer a bit of advice to people who are trying to let go of something that they're struggling with or they're suffering. thoughts around suffering. Just anything that you'd like to share around that would be so great.
Well, I would say suffering always, always, always is an indication that your higher self is taking you somewhere and you are either resisting it or there's something there for you to shift. And that's always the key. It always is that. It's either or. And so if you can just take yourself, just slow things down, go somewhere and just sit quietly with it, and just, it's like holding a baby that's crying, right? You have to get very still and quiet and soothe. So it's learning how to self-soothe, but doing that objectively so that you can see what the lesson is or what your part of it is, because we always have a part. That's
always.
I mean, if you're obviously attacked on the street and harmed, that's a little different. But there is still a learning there. You're still learning something. So if you can elevate that experience to the lesson, it dissolves the resistance, and you elevate yourself.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Also, I've encouraged people to detach from the experience if they can and become more of an observer.
Yes.
Right? Because everybody's emotionally in this life. But if you can master and learn how to just step back and observe what you're feeling, observe what's happening in your reality, observe your thoughts from a third-party perspective, you might learn something, right? Rather than be in it all in.
Right. That's the magic.
With your talons out and your dagger. Different experience if you can just step back and, become more of an observer of your life. And ask, what are these patterns about? What are these thoughts about? What are these behaviors about, right?
Right.
You might be surprised at what you find if you are able to do that. Marconics helps with that, by the way.
Absolutely.
Marconics practitioners. So if you're interested in a distance session, if you live in the Boston area, go see Kay. If you're in the Houston, Texas area, come see me. We really do help remove a lot of that karmic stuff.
Yes.
Elevate. That's what this modality is about, is ascension.
Right.
So.
I wouldn't have gotten through the last few years in working corporate without Marconics.
Right.
That's what kept me grounded.
Yeah, that was a really tough stint you just completed. I'm glad you're free.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Now we're on to bigger and better things, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Kay, I think I'm going to wrap this up. I thank you so much for joining me today. You've accomplished so much in your life. I honor your journey. I honor where you are and all of the people who you have yet to lead, teach, and influence in the world. Coming. So I just want to thank you. And to my audience, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope if this resonated, you will subscribe, like, and share to my YouTube channel. Be kind to yourselves, and I love you all. I'll talk to you later. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.